Hey guys, Level Alone here. Welcome to part 3 of my Ran Raid Guide series. This time, we're going to go over the third dungeon, Nightmare's Crib. The first thing you'll want to do for part 1 is to head over to the left side and sit at the edge of the bottom platform. This positioning will help minimize how often the boss dashes around the map. This boss is very mobile, and with every attack he lands on you, he will apply a stacking debuff. This debuff will lower your speeds and cause you to become very sluggish. The debuff stacks up to 20 times. Getting 20 stacks of this debuff will change all stacks to another debuff that lasts 15 seconds and is uncleansable. This secondary debuff will cause you to heal the boss every time you hit it with any skills or attacks, healing a percentage of the damage dealt. There are two ways to get rid of the stacking debuff. The first is to stack it to max and convert it to a different debuff, and the other way is to mitigate it by using consumable items, lowering the amount of stacks by 1 per consumable used. It's recommended to use cheaper alternatives of consumables during this phase, such as guild foods, alchemist foods and drinks, throwables, especially if the party is a little bit slower. The boss has multiple attacks, but the one that will leave the biggest impression is going to be tornadoes. The boss will teleport to the center of the stage and the camera will pan out. You will see the sides and center of the map glow rapidly, followed by a black tornado on both sides of the stage, and then a large tornado in the center of the map, covering the entire area. Taking damage from these tornadoes will stack a debuff on you per hit. In order to avoid it, you should start in the center, just along the side range of the side tornadoes. 1 second after the tornado starts to strike on the sides, move from the center to the outside. With some practice and good timing, you'll avoid all damage. It's pretty normal to get hit a couple of times, just watch your stacks. Occasionally, the boss will teleport to the middle of the upper or lower level platforms and perform a wide-ranging slash, covering the entire upper or lower half of the map. If you get hit by this, you will receive multiple stacks of the speed debuff and take a lot of damage. To avoid it, just jump to the side platforms or hyper-excel to the upper level. The boss has a multiple dark slash ability. This will cover a wide range across the map in random directions. This mechanic has potential to do a lot of damage if you get stuck with multiple slashes at the same time, so just be careful. To dodge this attack, just be sure to stay outside of the hit range markers. You have plenty of time to react. If you get hit by this ability, you will be blinded for a short duration, similar to the blackout blindness in Sunken Holy Ground. When the boss is below 150 bars of HP, he will use 2 multiple dark slashes back to back. The squares and circles mechanic will randomly select 2 players in the party to receive one of 2 visible debuffs. The first is squares, which require the affected players to separate a good distance, and the second is circles, which requires the affected players to stay in close proximity to each other. If you do not respect this mechanic, the players that are affected will explode after a short time. The easiest way to clear this mechanic is to have one of the square players, usually the sub DPS or support, not the main DPS, will separate from the party completely and go to the other side of the map. They can also go to the top left of the map, however, there are times where the tether distance is not long enough, especially if the players are directly above or below each other, or if they get knocked around by the boss. It's just safer to have one of the square players go to the opposite side. The boss's ultimate spawns shadows that tether to you. This mechanic requires quick reaction speed from the party. After a certain time, the boss will teleport to the upper platform on the left or right side, and spawn shadows equal to the amount of players alive. Each shadow will tether to 1 player, and after the time is up, they will dash out to them and deal massive damage. To clear this mechanic, the party will all need to get behind the boss as quickly as possible, making the shadows go through the boss. If done correctly by all players that are tethered, the boss will enter a short groggy state, allowing you to deal some damage before the next mechanic. The boss will always cast multiple dark slashes after this mechanic. And now you're ready to jump into part 2. Firstly, you will notice that the entire bottom half of the map is covered in a dense, dark fog. You will not be able to drop down through the middle platform in this stage at all. However, you can go up to it from under, with hyper-excel or a double jump for example. This is to prevent players from falling into the fog. The fog will deal damage over time continuously while you're in it. There are a few mechanics to be aware of for part 2 that are not in part 1. The first of which will be the one that appears the most often, Seed Rain. The upper middle boss will launch many seeds high into the air, and the seeds will rain down slowly in random pairs with a space between each one. Getting hit by these seeds will cause you to receive stacks of the same debuff as part 1. Reaching 20 stacks will give you the debuff that heals the boss when you attack it. Occasionally, the boss will perform an absorbing attack, sucking in all players in the surrounding area and draining their HP to 1. There is no fatal damage in this mechanic alone, but if it happens during seed rain, it may result in a few deaths or even a wipe, so make sure you use a potion right away. When the boss reaches 150 HP, or if enough time passes, it will use its ultimate, the Sleeping Cage. Every player will be assigned a random number 1 to 4, represented by a debuff on their debuff bar. This represents the order the party will be caged in. The only way to free the party is by using throwing item consumables. Any elemental orbs will work for this mechanic. However, you cannot free yourself from your own cage, even if you use an orb with a lingering hitbox like poison or wind. Anyone who is not freed from their cage will be killed at the end of this mechanic. After its ultimate at 150 bars, the boss will resummon the boss from phase 1. This is a weaker version of the first boss, that has less HP and defense. All of the same attacks from phase 1 can happen while this boss is out. The recommended position is the bottom left corner, but keep your resurrection titles on until he's done with his initial burst attack, as it does a ton of damage to everyone. The upper level boss will also summon dark orbs to each side of the platform that may drop down to the lower level onto the party. Touching this orb will rapidly stack up your debuff and do damage, so it's important to avoid it whenever possible. The seed rain will still be active from the upper level boss during this time, so it's best to take out the lower level boss very quickly. You have a few minutes after defeating the lower level boss to defeat the upper level one. If you're unable to defeat them together within a certain time frame, the lower boss will respawn again. And that's all for part 3. Nightmare's Crib's bosses definitely feel pretty hectic to go up against, but as long as you know what to look out for, you'll be just fine. Good luck clearing part 3, and as always, I'll see you all in game.